Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Good morning, dude.
What's up, man? How you doing this morning?
Good. I shouldn't say that because don't. What do you call your higher power?
Dude.
So now I call you dude. What is that?
No, it doesn't matter what you call me. It's what that word means to you.
Right. Okay. All right, dude. My grandson calls me bro or something. Bruh.
Of course he does.
I'm like, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
I go,
That's
I'm not
awesome.
your bruh.
Well, at least he's not calling you Mike.
Like,
Right?
well,
that's awesome,
right.
man. That's awesome.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you, man. We were just laughing about that, about how small of a world it is and how people are connected with us on TikTok and stuff that we don't even, know that
Right.
listen to us. Hey, that's cool,
Yeah, I get some good. There's some good in our website for those that don't know. There's some writings out there, and we get some good feedback from the writings too.
Man, the writings are great. So I think strategically, when we set this up at Sober.Coffee, I think there's confusion because people are like, man, I put in Sober.Coffee.com and
I know.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not that. It's Sober.Coffee.
www.sober.coffee.
So it's like, some of these brands try to be too cute and it hurts themselves.
You think we did that? Did we go there?
I don't know. I think we found one person, right?
That's right. According to the feedback,
And that was our goal.
that's it.
I know. I like that one response this week, man. It's just cool to be able to connect and turn our pain, our mess, into a message for others. And we're all on the same path, just walking the path ourselves. And one of the things I love, is there's no real original message.
No.
Right? There's nothing really original. We just regurgitate a lot of what's out there, and we're definitely students, and we just share what we hear and what we learn.
Wasn't that the thing? And I think to not learn is to die. I love learning. I had such a hard time in school learning. I was like, whatever. The system didn't work for me. But now I love to learn.
Did you have a problem learning? No. I see you as a sponge. I see you
love
reading
to
books
learn.
and going. You just suck it in. So when you were growing up, was it that you didn't like to learn, or you weren't testing well?
Maybe I was. No, I
Because
don't
test
think,
takes
I
a
don't,
lot.
no.
It's a different part
Yeah,
of the
but
brain.
I didn't like the whole process. I didn't like the whole process of having to study and stuff like that. But now, and again, I think the internet has changed the dynamic of, because now I can watch, I can listen, I can read. Right, I've got all the elements there of the program of learning that work for me now.
Yeah, I've actually, like at work, I've learned more in the last 3 years than I have my entire career.
Yeah.
Through any education, through any career to date, I've learned so much, and I just love it. I really go in every day, embrace, and what am I going to learn today, and how am I going to push my comfort zone today, because I really believe growth happens outside the comfort zone. And
So let's back up a second.
Yeah.
Do you think you know everything about AA?
Absolutely not.
You've been at it for 10 years.
No.
You said...
It's funny. What I know about AA today, so let's just say I know half of AA, which I probably don't. But let's just say I know half. I would say 10% of what I know, I learned from going through the steps myself with my sponsor. 10% of what I know. I think the other 90... I've learned from other people and from working with other people, such as sponsees, because I go through the steps with them, and we learn together. And then I learned so much from this podcast, and from having guests on this podcast and listening to how they look at things and their perspective, and it's almost like our men's group on Monday nights, right? I can sit there and, it's a spiritual group. I can read the Bible and not get anything out of it, but we spend 20 minutes talking about it in our group, and it comes to life. And now, I didn't know it meant that. And I didn't think of looking at it that way, and I didn't realize that context, And it's sort of like AA. So, no, I think the secret to AA, people try to read the book and put it on the shelf. I think the secret to AA is being a student all the time. I think you use that big book as a text, as an encyclopedia to go back to. We know a guy, Paul, he's been on the show. I mean, if you look at his big book, I mean, it is torn apart. And he can quote any part of that big book. Right. I'm nowhere near that. I think that's fantastic. And I think if you want to try to help somebody, you use the actual text, right? I mean, I paraphrase everything. I think what I know today, 10% from going through it, 90% from living it and working with others.
Yeah, I think the other thing for me, on top of those
you have
two
what,
things,
3 sponsees? 2
yeah,
sponsees? 3?
Yeah.
So is it the same with you? I mean, do you learn from your sponsees?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because
do you learn more from them than you teach them?
Positively, because when they come,
isn't that funny how it works?
Yes, and the one thing that I've kind of picked up over the years, especially in these last couple of years, is that I don't necessarily, if I'm giving them advice, I'm actually giving that advice to me, right? So I have to craft out that direction for them, and I almost always find that I'm struggling with something similar in my life, or if I'm not, I'm probably going to the next day, right? It just, but the other element to me is that I'm a different person now. Every day I've grown, right? So when I first read the big book, it meant something to one day sober Mike. Now that I can read that same thing now, 6 years into this, and I can 5 years. Sorry, I'm not officially 6 yet. 5 years into this, I read that same sentence. It's almost it nothing's changed except where Mike is. So now it means something different to me as I continue to strive to grow even more, learn more.
So can I pick apart something you just said?
Yeah.
Like that 6 year, 5 year thing?
Yeah.
No, it's I mean, I've had people, I know people that fake their dates, and, I know a guy that went on this podcast, and I know him, because he's a sponsee. And he goes on the podcast, he says he's 3 years sober. And I called him up. I hung up the podcast, I stopped listening. I call him up, I'm like, he goes, "Hey, man, what'd you think?" I said, "I think it's a bunch of bullshit." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I didn't really listen to it." "Oh, why wouldn't you listen to it?" I'm like, "Well, in the first 30 seconds, you said you were 3 years sober, and you're 6 months." So I didn't want to listen to anything else because it wasn't going to be true.
And it's not credible.
He got all offensive. I'm like, dude, who cares?
Yeah, right.
On that podcast, who cares if you're 6 months sober or 3 years sober? Who cares?
But who cares if you're not being honest with yourself?
There we go, Mikey. There we go.
And the only person that should care if you're not being honest with yourself is yourself.
But, early on, I always wanted to be somebody I wasn't, right? And I, I didn't like the real Glenn. I didn't, I wasn't proud of the real Glenn. I was proud of a Glenn I could make up, fantasize about. And so, when I went to meetings early on, I would always exaggerate my sobriety, And I had, I was one of the guys that say, well, hey, in 2 weeks I'll be a month sober. I would. Yeah. And people mocked me, and I had a sponsor at the time. I mean, he just ridiculed me in front of a meeting of 50 people, and I learned the lesson, right? That's where I'm still a jerk sometimes, but I saw this big celebrity that went out there and said, in a month, I'll have 6 years. So I had to respond. I'm like, man, that's fantastic. In 11 years, I'll have 20.
That's hysterical.
Because I'm like, that's such bullshit.
Right.
Right. I mean, why not just say, hey, man, I have 5 years and 11 months.
Right. Plus, there's something about it when somebody opens their mouth in a meeting and says, I've got 6 months today, right? There's something valuable about my ears perk up because I want to see what
you scold me on this. You've scolded me a couple years in a row because I don't care about, and for me, for my journey, when I had a year, the first time I had a year sober, I called up all the recovery places that I went to, all the therapists, and I'm like, I got this. I'm like, hey man, do you want to booked me as a guest speaker.
Right.
I really did.
Sure.
And they're like, no, we're probably good. We're booked up. Because nobody wanted to hear my shit, you know? And so, you know, I started to sell. I started to hit the miles silently until I met you, and you were like, hey, man, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with helping the person next to you, give them hope, because they see you keep coming back. They see all the stuff you're doing, and now you're racking up years, right? So you don't do it for you. You do it for them.
Right. Yeah, and there's milestones. Like when I sit in a room now, there was a guy the other day, and he had 27 years. Now, my first week in the program, I
can't relate to that.
I can't relate to it.
I mean, it sounds cool, but
it sounds cool. But I'm like, ooh, that 27 years.
I still
must
can't
have
relate
sucked.
to 27 years.
Right.
I mean, it's nice, but
yeah. But now, as I got when I hear, and then when I really listen is, well, have you ever had the stories where, well, I've got 6 years. Really, I should have 20, but I had 6 because I went out for 4. And you got to do. I had to take my calculator out and go. Okay, well, hold on a second. You got what, and you had what, and that one cracks me up too.
No, the funnest one I saw recently is, you know, there was a guy, a sponsee. I couldn't work with him anymore. I mean, he wasn't listening to me. He wasn't listening to AA. He was running his own program, and I finally told him, I'm like, dude, I think you should find somebody else. I said, I don't know your program, so I can't coach you on your program because I don't know it. I said, I can coach you on the AA program, because in the 12 steps, and so he goes. So I said, how long got sober now? I said, do you have a year yet? He goes, oh, I have over a year. So I knew, I mean, come on, I just know him. And I retorted, I said, so you're telling me alcohol hasn't touched your lips in over a year? He comes back, he goes, I had a slip in July for 4 days. He goes, I don't really count it because I stopped real quick. I got back on the sober path. So I said that. I said this to him. I haven't heard from him since. So I said this to him. I'm like, okay, so if I go out and cheat on Jen, right, but only for 4 days.
You've still been faithfully married for 5 years.
I can come back and say, hey, I'm still faithful for all the time I've been married to her. And I haven't heard from him since because it's just so absolute stupid how I used to. Right. And I know your story, so I can say how you used to justify and play the mental gymnastics or mental masturbation, you know, to justify stuff. And so I see it a mile away. And, you know, I mean, if somebody says, hey, man, in a month I'll have 6 years sober, I just know where they're at in the path.
Right.
I just know. You know, it's great.
It's amazing. And so how does that affect our sobriety? I guess is my question. For me,
I don't know what's the topic.
Well, I don't know. I don't think we had one today.
No, I think it was program consistency, right? Yeah. And I think you started asking about learning about AA and what it took and hey, I'm at a point right now. I'm doing my own pulse checks. You know, I got a lot of stuff busy.
You know, I'm going to correct you. You ask others for your pulse. You have others take your pulse. I mean, you'll do that with me. You'll do that with me. Hey, I'm having a week.
Yeah, but you haven't called me up in 3 weeks and said you haven't seen me at a meeting.
No, true.
No, I have been in a meeting, but I haven't been in a meeting with you. Right. But I have not been in a meeting in a week. Now I'm going to go tomorrow. But I mean, I'm very aware of that, right? So I think program consistency is. Now I do other things, right?
Yes, you do.
You know I do other things. Man, I you know.
You're doing it right now.
I'm doing a podcast right now, right? On a Saturday morning, right? So so maybe it looks different, but I still need to be fed, and the meetings are where I get fed.
And so meetings are part of your consistency.
They should be.
The consistency of the program.
Yep.
Yeah. I think
but instead of 8 or 9 or 10 a week, I'm down to 1.
Yeah, but you're still involved in the community.
I still do 10 other things.
And you might do 3 next week. Who knows? I'm not judging you.
No, but I think that's when we're talking about consistency. You know, I was talking to my sponsee yesterday, and he goes, I said, hey, you know, let's talk about a good topic for the podcast. He goes, man, you got to talk about consistency. He goes, people that aren't consistent land up drinking again.
Yeah, that scares me. That sentence scares me. Yeah.
Well, there's a guy I was with a meeting, 2 weeks ago. And he's sitting right next to me. We're doing a first step meeting. He's like, man, I hit 10 years, I mean, I listened to that
Oh,
guy.
sure. When that, yes.
I listened to him like he was a PhD.
I know, right?
And he says, I relapsed.
Yeah.
I mean, I dripped on every word that came out of that dude's mouth because I'm like, I'm coming up on 10. I don't want to be you.
That guy.
I don't want to be that guy.
Could you imagine? No.
Oh, my God. And I'm telling you, you know how I've worked the last 10 years. Everything would be gone in a week.
Yeah.
Everything would be gone in a week.
Yep.
You know it. I know it.
Yep.
Jen knows it.
Yep.
My sponsees know it.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So that's why I keep doing the 25
So
things.
what happened to this fella? The guy in the room that went out after 10 years.
Oh, he came back.
No, I know that.
After
no,
5
but
years.
what made him go off course? Was it a big traumatic life event? Was it just he just fell
No,
off the
he-
program? Did he say?
He stopped going to meetings.
He stopped going to
I'm
meetings.
telling you, man, that is like the singular bullet point, the common thread between all the relapses.
Right.
I
That
stopped
is.
going to meetings. You know, so when I hit, and I have a couple times, like when I go on vacation for a week, I have gone on vacation, not gone to any meetings in person. Now, there's times I've logged onto a Zoom, right? But I haven't done a Zoom meeting in 6 months. I've been trying to go more in person. But the common thread is, hey, I stopped going to meetings. And you stop going to meetings, you stop committing to the program, you're making other things in your life priority over your sobriety. And the stuff you put in front of your sobriety, you're going to lose. You know it.
Yep. Yep.
You know?
It just doesn't hold
You
any
go to
weight.
what? How many meetings do you go to a week?
2 or 3.
Okay.
2 or 3.
All in person?
Yep. Yep. And it's funny because I lived during COVID on the Zoom meetings, but now, again, life changes, my schedule changes. Now Tuesday night, all of a sudden, it's so funny. We go to a metro train station, and it's close. The train traffic is done, and we just sit in the station. I don't know if they approved it or what, but we just sit in the station, 10, 12 people, and just talk about sobriety. Have a meeting. It's great. And it's convenient for me. So where before,
That's really cool.
yeah, Zoom meetings were appropriate for me.
Right.
But now my schedule has changed. And then the one that you referenced before, my Sunday morning meeting, I love that one. I try and get to that one as often as I can. That one's a great meeting.
What, the breakfast or the
Yeah,
Cadillac?
no, just the 7 a.m. Yeah, 7
Yep.
a.m.
I
Just
love
a
that
lot
one.
of good sobriety in there.
No, I love it. And, hey, what I have, I've mapped out 25 things and that I do a day or week, maybe 26 now, a day or week or month to stay sober. And I keep doing them, and I keep coming back to it because I keep doing them. And the reason why I do that, people always ask me, well, man, you got 9 years sober. Why are you still doing all those things? Mm-hmm. And my easy answer is because they work.
Right.
And I don't know if 18 works.
Yeah, right.
And
You don't know.
I can't
right.
take a risk.
But back to the meetings, that's a common thread that you've heard.
Oh, that's right. You've heard it,
Oh, sure.
right?
Yep,
I mean, the
quit going
first
to
thing,
meetings.
man, I quit going to meetings, and all of a sudden, I'm relapsing and everything else.
Yeah. And to me, that's, it flips my stomach to think of what I would lose now by doing that.
Oh, my gosh.
And
Can you
then-
imagine going back to zero?
And here's the other part. And this is what concerns me. I know with everything within me right now, I know that one sip is going to open up the floodgates, right? I know that. What concerns me is that one day my brain starts telling me, oh, you can have just one. I've heard that too. I've heard that as a common thread. I thought I could
Does
just
that happen to
have
you now?
a couple. No. I'm so repulsed by the thought of a sip that
So that
I
actually
don't
happened to
even
me
go there.
yesterday. That happened to me yesterday. So we have alcohol in the house. It's
Mm-hmm.
up in the pantry, up top shelf. I don't have it in the fridge. I'm going to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I went in yesterday to check on the coffee pods,
Right.
and I looked up,
And there it was.
and there it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jen was sitting outside in the beautiful fall, nice,
Sure.
65
Crisp,
degree
yep.
air, I mean, just perfect
Yeah.
weather. And I thought, hey, what if I made her a drink?
Yeah.
She doesn't drink, right?
Right,
She might
right.
drink one a month,
That's Nancy,
one every
same
3
thing,
months,
right.
yeah. And so I'm like, and then I literally thought to myself, hey, what if I had just a half of one?
Yeah, right?
Right? I mean, that's just natural thought. And then I started laughing because I'm like, okay, maybe I would get away with one glass of wine the first night. But I'm going back on my experience. Every time that I have, the 100 times I've done that,
I know.
I remember in my mind, I can still feel it. The night I said, I'm just going to do it, the night I had 2 beers, I was Superman when I went to bed that night.
Sure.
I got this. I conquered this. I only had 2 beers.
That's right.
The next night, I said, I'm only going to have 2 beers. Next night, I slipped. I had 3.
Okay. So,
Hey, you know what? I'm
fast
okay.
forward, how many days till you were back in detox?
3 or 4. No, 3 or 4 I had a handle. It was a week before I was back in detox.
There we go, a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but like the day 3 or day 2, I had 3 beers. I'm like, I scolded myself a little bit.
Right.
Hey, tomorrow we'll just get on 2 beers. And then before, 3 or 4 days, I was drinking a handle of vodka.
Yeah.
And then it was a week before I was back in detox.
And so now let's fast forward to where you're at now. Glenn, you're a data guy. You're a data-driven guy,
Yeah.
right? And we both know the data. We both know the data, what happens when we start drinking, right? I guess we know that it goes south. But here's my point. The brain, that the fact that you had that thought, and trust me, when I was at the ball game, I told you the story last year. We were at the ball game. My wife went to the right to the nacho stand. My daughters went to the left to the popcorn stand, and I stood there. And in the stadium, it was 2 blocks away for them to go. So I was 4 blocks away from anybody and any accountability. And I thought, dang, a quick beer would be really good here.
There is no such thing.
I know. And I'm a data-driven guy. But here's what scares me. We both agree we don't want to go back there. But we both also understand that alcohol, it's cunning, baffling, powerful, as the program says. But it's that justification, that brain justification that we can drink as a normal person. And my data tells me I can't.
So real quick, we'll end on this piece of data.
Yes.
So right now I have a doctor and attached to the same hospital when I went to 20 detoxes. Mm-hmm. Now there's another hospital I went to about 38 detoxes at, right? So this is not the main one.
Right.
This is a secondary hospital.
Okay.
And then I went to a whole bunch of tertiary ones. But this, I went about 20 times. So you talk about data. When I log into my health log today,
yes,
I can go back and see the data, my health data from those 20 detoxes, and I compare to my meds, not my meds, but my numbers today.
Yes.
And I don't take any meds today, thank God.
No.
I probably should, but the data is just. But I can go back and look at those 20 detoxes.
Oh, can't you
Delete
expunge those from your record?
You know what? I should be able to. There should be a statute of limitations on alcohol stupidity.
And I'll tell you what. Thank you so much for this coffee this morning.
Dude, I love it, man. Stay with the program.
Stay with the program.
Stay on the path.
Consistent.
Stay consistent.
And as stupid as it sounds, go to meetings, don't drink.
I love it, man. Sometimes it's that easy.
Love you, brother.
All right, take care, man.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.